Hi, everybody joining us today for another live stream from the London School of English. Today, we will be talking about the problem that many language learners face understanding native English speakers. We have a lot of clients joining our English courses who say, I just feel so embarrassed at work meetings because I don't understand my colleagues or clients. Is this something that you have trouble with? It may be very difficult, but there are strategies that you can use to improve your listening skills and feel comfortable and confident in understanding native English speakers. And we'll share the strategies with you today. If you're new to our channel, the London School of English is the place where you can improve your English with expert English language trainers, both in virtual group classes and face-to-face courses in the UK. And we help you to improve your English for work, general and social situations, when you need to prepare for exams, for example, for IELTS. And we have a range of English courses that you can find on our website, londonschool.com. What is more, you can meet like-minded, motivated classmates from around the world and practice your English in social situations too. So every week we hold these live stream sessions as a way for you to connect directly with our English language trainers. So in this session today, share with us any questions about learning English or English language courses in the live chat next to the video, and we're always very happy to hear from you. And now I'm delighted to welcome to the live stream today Douglas Nakaya, an expert English language trainer from our school, and Jo Burns, Director of Sales and Marketing, and someone who actually speaks many languages herself and knows how difficult it may be to understand native English speakers. So welcome, Jo and Douglas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olga. Hello. Welcome to another live stream brought to you by the London School of English. My name is Douglas, and I am one of the trainers at the London School of English. Thank you very much for joining us today. I would like to take this opportunity to say a special hello to our wonderful and committed regulars. I am so delighted that we already have such a strong following. A special shout out to Tanya in Brazil. She'll probably be joining us in a moment. Frank in Luxembourg and Daniela from Italy. Thank you very much, guys. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. Also a big hug to all my colleagues. And I am very excited about this talk today, as we're going to be talking about a big question for learners of English. But first, I'd like to welcome Jo to this conversation. How are you getting on, Jo?
All right.
Good.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everybody. I think it might be useful to have me here as a native English speaker. I make the effort to make my English as clear as possible for these live streams. And also when I'm working with my international team, who are all fluent speakers of English. But I know that naturally I have quite a strong accent. So when I'm speaking with my family or friends, my speech is much more joined up and slurred and strongly accented. But as a student of foreign languages myself, I know how hard it can be when you're trying to get clarity on what someone is saying, when you can understand some words here and there, but you can't understand the full meaning. It can be very frustrating and sometimes hard to say to people, stop, I don't understand. And most English people, let's appreciate the fact that most of them don't learn other languages. So they don't have this experience. So forgive them. They don't have this experience. They can't necessarily relate to it. So I think that this live stream is going to be so helpful in starting. Hey, Tanya, this live stream is going to be so helpful in managing some of these problems. So over to you, Douglas.
Thank you. Thanks, Jo. So like I said earlier, I'm very excited about this talk today because I know for a fact that it will help you improve your listening comprehension skills. It might even help you become a more fluent speaker. I'm talking about connected speech. I'll explain what that means in a second, but first, do you find it difficult to understand native speakers? And why do you think that is? So again, do you find it difficult to understand native speakers, and why is that? Please let us know. Let us know what you think in the comments section while I explain connected speech. Well, connected speech is when words are spoken as a continuous stream of sounds. When native speakers of English string words together, it becomes difficult to tell words apart. It's difficult to tell when one word ends and when the next word begins. So when we don't connect sounds in spoken discourse, then we end up sounding a little bit like Siri or a little bit like Alexa. It's a little robotic. So in this video today, I'm going to show you some features of connected speech. This will not only help you understand native English speakers, but also help you sound more natural when speaking the language. Now, going back to my question earlier, what do you find it difficult to understand native English speakers? And sometimes, so somebody saying, yes, I feel they speak so quickly. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. They do often speak very fast indeed. The other thing is accents. Yes, different accents or accents we're not normally accustomed to can also cause trouble in comprehension. There are an enormous number of different accents in the UK, different accents of English in the UK. So in the UK alone, there's dozens of them. So let alone, not to mention the US, for example, or Canada, or Australia, South Africa, or India for that matter. So it really is so diverse. Now, if you'd like to know more about all the different British accents and what they sound like, then you can visit the British Library website for a taste of that. So the address will be showing. Yeah, there we go. So you get a chance to listen to how people living in the UK sound like when they speak. It's really, really interesting. All right, so time to improve our listening comprehension skills. Are you ready? Okay, let's dive in. So number one, weak forms. Weak forms and the schwa sound represented by this phoneme over here. See, that's the schwa sound, most common sound in the English language. So words in English can be defined as content words and function words. I'll explain. Content words are words that carry meaning. Words like verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs are content words. So content words are important. Yeah, so these words are often stressed in a sentence so they can be understood. And we have function words, quote unquote, less important words. So words like pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, articles, and auxiliaries. These are function words. Function words have a strong form and a weak form when pronounced. And let's take, for example, the word and. And is a conjunction, so a function word, and it's pronounced and. The strong form of the word is and. But in the phrase bread and butter, for example, and is actually pronounced n, with a schwa sound. Yeah. Do you want to? So and becomes n. So bread and butter, bread and butter. It's easier to pronounce when you do it like this. It's more efficient than bread and butter, yeah, or fish and chips for that matter. Yeah, not fish and chips, but fish and chips, fish and chips. In fluent speech, native speakers will often use the weak form because it's easier to pronounce. So here's an example. Have a look at this question here. What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Pay attention to the word do here. It appears twice in the sentence. Do you see? So first here and then there. Notice that these, although they're the same words, they have different functions. They also sound different. Can you tell me the difference between them? Anyone? Well, so here we go. This first do here is an auxiliary, yeah? And the second do is a main verb. So first one, function, word, and the second one, a main verb. So for the first one, we have the weak, unstretched sound, d, 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 followed by the strong form of the word, do. So when you say it, it sounds something like this. What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? You see, another example. So a cup of tea. A cup of tea sounds better than a cup of tea. A cup of tea with the schwa sound there. A cup of tea. Well, it can be sometimes difficult, hard to hear these unstressed function words, and that can interfere with your understanding of what's been said. So be aware of weak forms and practice weak forms is our first tip today. Our next step is understanding. Our next step in understanding native English speakers is understanding intrusion. Intrusion and linking sounds. Yeah. Well, so you remember I mentioned that fluent speakers of English speak words as a continuous stream of sounds. Well, sometimes when two vowel sounds are said together, then an extra sound will appear, yeah, in order to make it easier to say them. So there's this extra sound. So sometimes referred to as the linking sound or an intrusive sound. So you probably know that in Britain, the R at the end of a word is not normally pronounced. So for example, car, or yeah, there we go, car, or clear. So the last R in these words are not normally pronounced. But if it comes before a vowel sound, then we hear it. It marks the transition sound between the two vowels. So for example, my car is at the mechanic. My car is at the mechanic. So we hear a linking R there. You wouldn't normally hear the R when you say car, but in this example, because there's a vowel sound next to it, then we hear it. My car is at the mechanic. My car is at the mechanic. Or here's another example. It's as clear as mud. Remember, clear, no R sound, but because there's a vowel sound following the R sound, then clear as mud. It's as clear as mud. Right. An intrusive R may also appear when a word ends in the or sound. So for example, as in the law of the land. The law of the land. You see, law ends in or, followed by a vowel sound. So there's an intrusion. There's this R sound. Listen, the law of the land. The law of the land. Another example would be law and order. Law and order. There we go. Law and order. Right. So an intrusive r may also appear at the end of words ending in a schwa sound. So, for example, at the London School of English, we have hundreds of students from China and Japan. Hundreds of students from China and Japan. Can you hear it? China and Japan. There's a linking r joining these two vowel sounds there. China and Japan. Another example. Is that your idea of a joke? Is that your idea of a joke? Your idea of a joke. Idea there. And then of idea of a joke. That's what we call the intrusive r sound. But there's more. Let's now have a look at the linking y, represented by this phoneme here. That's not a J, it's a phoneme, and it represents this sound, y, y. Listen to this. He earns a lot of money, but she earns even more. He earns a lot of money, but she earns even more. Did you notice? Listen again to the words said separately. He earns. She earns. Now in connected speech, he earns. She earns. He earns a lot of money, but she earns even more. So you can hear the linking y there. When there's a vowel sound after a word ending in I, E, A, or oi, we smooth the link out by adding a y sound. If you want to give it a go, try this. How would you say this? This is the end. This is the end. The end, the end. This is the end. And how about this? My favorite colors are gray and blue. My favorite colors are gray and blue. Gray and, yeah, gray and blue. Gray and blue. My favorite colors are gray and blue. Excellent. You must be wondering if I forgot about the linking wa. And the answer is no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Did you notice? Words ending in u sound and sound, for example, no, followed by another vowel sound, will have a linking wa sound in between. You can just about hear it. Try these examples. You and me. You and me. Can you hear it? You and me. You and me. You and me. Wa, you and me. Very well. Another example. I want to eat. I want to eat. You know, can you hear it? I want to eat. To eat. I want to eat. Very well. Right, now, here's a question. If a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I don't know. But what I do know is that native speakers of English want to always be efficient with tongue movement. And in doing so, they also want to do the minimum effort possible. And when they do that, in doing so, some sounds may disappear in the process. So this is called elision. Some sounds that we can't hear. So, for example, it must be done. It must be done. Can you hear the t in must? It must be done. It must be done. No, you can't. So when the t and the d sounds come before a consonant sound, they're often elided. so in other words, they're often cancelled. Let's hear another example. The dog was left behind last night. The dog was left behind last night. You see, in fluent speech, you would pronounce left behind, not left behind, but left behind. Also, last night, as opposed to last night. Right. Sometimes this will happen with the H sound as well. Listen to this. He broke his leg. He broke his leg. So we hear this H here, but we can't hear this one. He broke his leg. So this happens when the H sound comes after another consonant sound and is in the middle of a sentence. Notice that we don't elide the first H. We don't cancel it. So there we are. Okay. Sometimes elision can happen in the middle of a word as well. So, some examples would include Christmas, or sandwich, always, and salmon. Okay. And last but not least, let's look at something called catenation, which is when we join a consonant sound at the end of a word and a vowel sound at the beginning of the next word without a clear-cut borderline between them. I'll give you an example. When you say this, I got up at 8. It's very unlikely you would hear this in this sentence in this way in a normal social interaction. It's too slow, it's not fluent. But if we push the last consonant here, the last consonant forward, if we push it forward and connect it to the next vowel sound in the next word, that'll make it sound more natural. So now listen to it a little bit more natural way. I got up at 8. Got up at 8. Here's another example. Instead of stop it, how about stop it? Stop it. And how about this? Instead of fix it, how about fix it? Fix it. This is very important. Learners normally struggle to understand native English speakers for that reason. Sounds are too close together and it's sometimes difficult to tell one word from another. But remember, you can always count on context to help you understand what's being said. So, for example, look at this. She joined us for lunch. She joined us for lunch. Hang on, there's something wrong here. Something wrong here, isn't there? Look, she joined us for lunch. Can you spot it? Joined us sounds exactly like joined us, do you see? So they sound the same, but joined us really makes no sense. So you see how context is everything. So she joined us for lunch. She joined us for lunch. Well, let's try one more. Can you find what's wrong here? I stopped using my phone after 11. I stopped using my phone after 11. So context. I'm having trouble sleeping and I stopped using my phone after 11. Stop choosing makes no sense. So what is it that I'm actually saying? I stopped using my phone after 11. I stopped using my phone after 11. So this is what I'm actually saying. I stopped using my phone after 11. Very well, so that's catenation, when we join, when we link consonant sounds and vowel sounds. Okay, time to recap. If you want to improve your listening skills and understand native English speakers, remember these points. Weak forms and the schwa sound, the intrusive r and the linking r, the linking wa and the linking ya. And remember that some sounds may disappear, and this is called elision. And we normally elide the t sound, the d sound, and the h sound. They are often not heard in fluent speech. Okay, also remember that fluent speakers naturally link consonant and vowel sounds together, and we call this catenation. And if you would like to learn more about pronunciation, make sure to subscribe to our channel and check our future videos. And I guess it's now time for some Q&A, for some questions. It's our Q&A moment. Olga, Joe, anything you would like to add, to say?
Great. Thank you, Douglas. This was a very informative lesson on how to understand native English speakers better. And it's really great to see some of the comments from our viewers. For example, Sophia is saying that the lesson has been very helpful to her. And we also have quite a lot of both our regular viewers and new viewers who are talking about the difficulties that they have with understanding English native speakers. Particularly, people mention rate of speech or how fast speech as one of the problems that they encounter, as well as accents, including regional accents. And I know that we would talk about this, Douglas and Joe, just in a few seconds. And then also some people, some of our viewers also mention that they don't always understand the meaning of the words. Say, for example, when it comes to idiomatic expressions in English, this might be difficult to understand. So yes, quite a lot of various difficulties, but hopefully this lesson helped you a lot with that. And just so please do write your questions and comments in the live chat next to the video. But perhaps given that we have clients who quite often come to us and say that they want to specifically focus on listening skills and improving listening skills in either virtual courses or face-to-face courses in the UK, what can you say they can expect in terms of improving their listening skills in our course? What's it like? Douglas, Joe.
Well, yeah. So we tend to curate the materials we choose when we do when we do listening comprehension tasks. So and we take into account the client's needs. So if they say, "Oh, I deal with Scots," or "I deal with a lot of people from America," then we tend to choose something that would fit into. We'll do our best to kind of try and cater for that need, and we'll show them that how that particular accent sounds.
I think that's important. I mean, I know it's a very common thing for people to talk about an American accent, a British accent, or an English accent. But as an English person, I always think there's no such thing. There is no such thing as a British accent. Somebody from Glasgow does not sound the same as somebody from London. In fact, I'll give you a personal example. My parents moved to Scotland, and my father, who was a Londoner from London, couldn't understand his new neighbours. Even they're all British, but he couldn't understand his Scottish neighbours. So there are lots of people. Bear in mind that the variety in the UK is so rich that there are lots and lots of British people who actually struggle to understand each other. And even sometimes, I've seen this before, if you have an English program that is on the television in the United States, they put subtitles because they know that the American people won't understand the Scottish or the English or the Irish. So it's not something, it isn't just your problem as language learners. It's a common problem. I think it's, don't be embarrassed about that. There are lots of people who simply don't understand each other who speak the same language. It sounds crazy.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it's only the exposure to this particular regional accent, for example. Maybe if you want to understand some of the accents, London could be a good point when everything reopens, and finally when we have our face-to-face courses, then this is a great opportunity to actually be exposed to very different accents, both from the UK, but also from all around the world with international classmates.
Yes,
so
definitely. I mean, one of the things that we do find is very useful is having multicultural groups, because often when people are using English, it isn't to speak to other English speakers at work. It's to speak to other people who are using English as a common language. So it's good to get used to hearing, how does an Italian speaker speak English? How does a French speaker speak English? And so on. I would also say, actually, when we have had students who have taken our courses to prepare for university, some of them have said to me, I'm thinking of going to university in Birmingham, for example. One girl I remember, and I said to her, listen to the Birmingham accent. Listen, go online and find recordings and prepare yourself, because when you go into shops, when you get on the bus and you buy a ticket, when you want to conduct your everyday life, you're going to want to understand people clearly. And so just get used to how that sounds. It's not how your teachers at our school usually speak. So just add a layer of understanding. Or if you have a conference call with a company that is based in Manchester, do some research and think, okay, we've got 5 people on this conference call. It's likely that some of them, if they are English, will be from the north of England, and especially around Manchester. What might that sound like? Instead of saying Bath, they might say Bath, for example. Just, little changes like this can be useful if you do your homework.
Yeah, especially in the vowel sounds. It's all in the vowels.
Yeah.
So pay attention to how they change and the different variations of it.
Yeah. That reminds me.
Comment. Erdal has a question.
Yeah. So this is a specific question about how to pronounce stop in the British with the British way. So question to you, Joe, and to Douglas. Joe, how would you pronounce that?
Let's pronounce stop.
Stop. For me, it's a very short sound. Stop.
It is a very short sound. One
and I
stop.
And I probably swallow my P, so it's stop.
Yeah,
that's me. But yes, stop.
Yeah, and
the EU sound. Can you give us an example, Erdal, of a word that might appear in? because that would be quite unusual unless it was a borrowed word from French, for example, or I'm not.
Yeah.
I can't think. Can you think, Douglas, of a word where that occurs?
EU, not really. No, it'd be great if we could get an example from him. What exactly he means by EU. That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, Erdal, do write. If you could explain a little bit more what you mean by EU sound in the live chat, that'd be great. And meanwhile, one of the other questions that we quite often hear from English language learners is that, say, for example, if somebody is saying something that it's very hard for them to understand, a lot of language learners would feel really embarrassed about stopping the speaker and telling them to, for example, repeat or that they don't understand. What's your advice in these situations?
Just ask people, just say to them, you know, I'm really struggling to understand. Please, could you slow right down? For an English person, if you say, could you speak a bit slower? The danger is that they will speak a little slower and then speed up again. But if you say to somebody, please slow right down, that says to them, okay, very slowly. It's something that I would say in that phrasing, that means that if you say, please, could you slow right down, they will know to speak how I am. This would be slow right down.
Yeah.
Okay, speak a little bit more slowly, but slow right down. And the good thing about that is that people don't slur the word. They don't use catenation, as Douglas was explaining. Because when you slow right down, you start to separate.
You need to say them separately.
Well, you sound crazy. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you separate the words again.
Yeah. So sometimes they get so embarrassed, and especially in some cultures, it's you know, they're too embarrassed to go, yeah, can you say that again, but please slow, yeah, like Joe says, slow right down. So what happens is sometimes people just shake their heads or not, you know, they'll nod or shake their heads without understanding. And when you do that, you aggravate the situation because then, you know, what if it wasn't a yes or no sort of a question in the first place, and then you're nodding or shaking your head, and that would actually aggravate the situation. So don't be afraid, don't be ashamed of saying, look, I'm learning, and it'd be great if you could slow things down, and yeah, no, there's no shame in that.
If I can add, I remember as a small child hearing somebody struggling with their English, and I said to my mother, they don't speak English very well, not really aware that it wasn't their first language, or they don't speak very well. And she said, you know, it's not their first language. Can you speak to them in their language better than they can speak to you? And I said, no. She said, well, then, aren't they doing brilliantly? You know, this is always the point, isn't it? And most English people can only order coffee in one language, English. And if they're lucky, maybe say café in French if they're forced to. So you can generally speak English much better than English people can say anything else. Seriously, don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's a very good anecdote from the personal experience, which many of us actually have.
You will find that Brits are very polite and they're very willing to help, and so yeah, don't be scared.
They know when English people go abroad, they understand very quickly how little they are able to cope if everyone else can't speak English. Don't ever forget that. And culturally, nobody minds helping. So yeah.
Yeah. Great. We've got a few more comments coming from our viewers. So Ali Abdi is actually sharing his experience by saying that listening to the BBC World Service and Voice of America, I guess it's VOA, it's probably Voice of America radio stations every day helps him to improve understanding of English. And that's and then what we also have here?
That's true. Yeah.
Some questions from Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah had a question about the intrusive "r" and what.
Yeah,
that's a question.
Yeah, and I think for that, and after that, Douglas, there was you actually explained quite a lot about this. So Sarah, do let us know if this is still a question. But we also have another question from her in terms of the first steps that beginner needs to make in order to sound like a native. That's such a big question. But what would we be able to say in just a few words?
Beginners to sound like, well, if you
like
want to sound more like a native, that's gonna take some time and practice. So it's not something that you won't be able to sound like a native speaker from the get-go. It'll take some practice. Of course, you can apply all of these techniques right from the start, and that will help you sound more natural. So yeah, just try that from the beginning.
Advanced, I mean, we provide classes actually that focus on accent. I don't know if you're aware of this. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, but just so you know, we even get English people sometimes who come to take these classes as well. They're called voice and accent training. Quite often what will happen is we have somebody, I will take a sales call from someone and they'll say, I need to study business English. And I'll say, okay, do you want to talk to me a bit more about what you need? And they will start speaking and their English is a very high level, but they will have quite a thick accent. And they will say, oh, my colleagues all say my English is bad, they can't understand me. And I'll say, it isn't about even your English, and it's not even about your accent. What I would say is it's about the music. It's about the intonation. It's about where do you put the emphasis? Is it emphasis?
Yeah.
Emphasis. There are these little things that can really make you not necessarily sound like a native speaker, but make you as the language learner much more easy for people around you to understand and make you sound more fluent. When you understand in this sentence, where should the emphasis be? Where should my voice rise and fall? That is something that can be very helpful for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Erdal is saying he means how to say hello. Well, that depends where you come from. Douglas, how would you say it as the professional?
Yeah, no, I think he's talking hello, first syllable, schwa. It's not a schwa in the first, so it's an eh sound, different from a sound, not hello, but hello. It's not a schwa. It's eh followed by a diphthong o. Hello. Hello. Hello.
If you actually want to speak like a native speaker, if I saw some people that were friends of mine down the pub, I'd say hello.
Hello, governor. Yeah.
But that's because I have a different accent. But I'll say hello.
Yeah, but that's interesting because that's an example of elision of the H sound, and that's a very Londoner thing to do. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
And that's the comedy value. I can't teach you anything. I just am here for the comedy.
But it's actually kind of brings us very nicely to one of our last questions. Actually, our last question for this live stream is talking about actually language immersion and being in London, learning English in London. Joe, we right now have virtual courses, virtual group courses, general English, business English, IELTS, legal English. So all of those courses that you can find on our website. But in terms of actually our center opening up and the courses in our centers face-to-face, when can people and our alumni expect this to happen?
Well, we now have a plan, actually. We have a plan. We're opening
Exciting.
on Monday, the 31st of August, which everyone is very pleased about. I know, right? So, so everybody will be able to take courses back in Holland Park Gardens from Monday, the 31st of August. So
very good news. Very good news.
Yeah.
Really exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
I went for a meeting over at the school. It was very strange to see it empty, but it was very nice to be planning with my colleagues how we're going to, and we've done already a lot of work in terms of deep clean and preparing little hygiene packs for clients, working out how many clients we can have in each room so that everybody has enough distance because of government guidelines. And also just giving everything a nice airing and getting ready. We're very happy to be welcoming people back in the real world.
Yeah, that's such exciting news, particularly given that a lot of our alumni actually ask us about this on the regular basis in live stream. So it would be fantastic to not only see this live chats, but actually see real people and the faces of our alumni and new clients in the school. So that's fantastic news. And with that, you can always contact us if you have any questions related to our courses on our website, londonschool.com, which is shown here on the screen. Or if you have questions either about our virtual group classes or about face-to-face courses, you can also contact us via clients@londonschool.com. So we're looking forward to you joining our classes now, also face-to-face. So before we wrap up, Douglas or Joe, would you like to add anything to all of the English learners and our alumni who are joining us today?
I think. Well, do we have time? Well, I would just like to. People were talking about accents. I'd just like to, if I may, offer comforting news. Is that in linguistics there's something called accommodation. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but accommodation, which means when you will adapt to the accent and to all other aspects of the language when you according to the environment you find yourself in. So don't be too worried about accents. Just be there and get used to to the sounds. Pay attention to vowel sounds, very important. And yeah. So and that's it. That's it from me, really.
Thank you, Douglas.
I think everybody appreciates the effort that somebody is making to join them in their language. Everybody is prepared to make an effort in return and join you as you learn our language. So don't be embarrassed about it. Just jump in, and with more and more practice, you'll feel more comfortable and you'll start to understand more with practice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both for this wonderful live stream and for very practical advice and for encouragement, because quite often English language learners just need this encouragement and a safe and comfortable atmosphere to practice their English, which our school, of course, offers. So Thanks again for joining us for this live stream. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're constantly uploading new videos and releasing new live streams to help you learn English. And of course, keep safe. Keep stay well and safe, and also keep learning English, both virtually and now potentially in London.
It's been a great pleasure, guys. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon.
Bye. Bye.
Stay safe. Bye.